The IndyCar Series is presented in association with Champion Spark Plugs and Valvoline.
Al Unser Jr., the king of the beach. His mind is filled with memories of 4 straight checkered flags on these streets. Nothing has been able to stand between Little Al and Victory Lane at Long Beach. He has left many competitors in his wake. And he comes here now in search of his 5th consecutive win. Michael Andretti. Last year, he drank from the PPG Cup as the IndyCar champion. But this season has begun with only 1 pole and 6 PPG points. Michael has pushed himself and his car and captured his 3rd straight pole through the concrete canyons of Long Beach. He has memories of a terrifying pit crash that ended last year's run. But now he has a new Ford engine and needs to get his season back on track. Eddie Cheever is walking tall after a career-best 2nd-place finish last week at Phoenix. He, too, is one of the Ford few and hopes to ride the momentum of his Phoenix performance. Looking now for his first ever IndyCar win. It's Ford versus Chevy power and Unser versus the field, as the IndyCars are ready to challenge these mean streets in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Already rolling on the circuit, heading for the final corner on now what is a shortened circuit. Only 7 turns, 1.59 miles around. That's Michael Andretti that has the pole, and Danny Sullivan outside the front row, with Scott Pruitt and Al Unser Jr. in the 2nd row. The green flag comes out, and we're racing in Southern California as they scream down Shoreline Boulevard and head for the very first turn. It's Michael Andretti still in front. Scott Pruitt and Al Unser Jr. come up to challenge. Already, and Danny Sullivan drops back.
Already a substantial move by Al Unser Jr., who has won the last 4 races here. He's now running 2nd.
Danny Sullivan has started on the front row, moved backwards on the start, and now it is Little Al that chases Michael Andretti, the pole sitter.
Incredible the domination by the Unsers and the Andrettis at this track.
The rest of the field strings through. You may notice there are 4 turns missing there as they come up to battle for the lead. It's a straight shot down Seaside now, and 1 car ran straight off on Seaside. 1 car straight off the end of the circuit. Yellow flags fly in that corner. And it's Mario Andretti. Mario Andretti into the tire barrier. It looks as if he is all right, though. The rest of the field now answering yellow flags all around the circuit.
Boy, you can see what a job those tires do, Paul. It's just like going into a balloon. Let's take another look at it here.
Here it is as they came into the corner, and Mario brushes the inside wall.
Brushed the inside wall, shot him out straight. He couldn't turn back then.
And Eddie Cheever's onboard camera view, looking backwards as Mario touched him coming to the inside.
Boy, that was close. It's wonder it wasn't the worse than that. But, Paul, those tire barriers are just like running into a balloon. That really saved Mario a lot of problems.
He has damaged Cheever's car, so that's going to be at least 2 men out of the race. Mario had qualified 7th. You see his crew there.
A most remarkable set of circumstances here on the first lap at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Let's go back now and take a look at how they qualified in 2 days of qualifying here. On the pole, it's Michael Andretti, his 22nd career pole for the 1986 Long Beach winner. And Danny Sullivan is outside. He's twice finished 3rd in this event. In the 2nd row, it's Scott Pruitt, who began his IndyCar career here in 1988. And Al Unser Jr. is outside, going for his 5th straight win here in Long Beach. In the 3rd row, Emerson Fittipaldi, twice a runner-up here. And Eddie Cheever, who ran an impressive 2nd last week at Phoenix. The 4th row on the inside is Mario Andretti, a 3-time winner of this event. And Bobby Rahal is outside, who led wire-to-wire last week in the Phoenix 200. In the 5th row, it's Rick Mears, looking for his first win on these streets. And John Andretti, who is currently 6th in the point standings. In the 6th row, the inside is Scott Brayton. He has 2 top 10 efforts in the last 2 years on this track. And Gregor Wojtek making his 2nd start for A.J. Foyt's team. The 7th row is Jimmy Vasser, driving a car in which Bobby Rahal finished 2nd here last year. And Roberto Guerrero, driving for drag racer Kenny Bernstein. In the 8th row, it's Tony Bettenhausen, a 14-year veteran of the IndyCars. And Ted Trappis, a sophomore driver who finished a strong 6th here a year ago. The 9th row is Scott Goodyear, who ran 7th in this race last year. And Brian Till, making his IndyCar debut. In the 10th row, it's Eric Bachelard, a graduate from the Indy Lights ranks. And Fabrizio Barbaza in his first start here since 1987. In the 11th row, Hiro Matsushita, a 3rd-year driver from Japan, and Joey Marcello making his 3rd career IndyCar start. In the final row, it's Buddy Lazier, a former ski racer from Colorado, and Tero Palmroth of Finland. That was the way they lined up, leading to the green flag. Now, here was a situation in this morning's session as we look at a live shot of Scott Pruitt. He had his problems during the warm-up. As he came onto Shoreline, which is the pit straight here, everything appeared to be normal. But watch, though, as he headed down into the very first corner, which is a hard right-hander. Passing under the Texaco Bridge just ahead, downshifting, and suddenly... and the car head-on into the tire barrier at the end. Now, looking at it again, apparently what happened was the front brakes failed on the car, because if you watch that front tire, it never stopped rolling. Scott brushed it into the wall, got it pointed back straight, and wisely took the tire barrier right straight on, which is the safest way to take it.
And of course, the important thing is to understand that Scott Pruitt sustained terrible injuries to his legs 2 years ago in an accident where the brakes failed. So it was a real nightmare for him what happened here.
But as you can see, he's 3rd in the lineup now. That's the backup car, and we are ready to go racing once again. They have the situation over on the Seaside straight cleared up. Mario Andretti's car out of the way, and we're back running again as Michael Andretti leads Al Unser Jr. down into the corner. Little Al pokes his nose inside. Danny Sullivan, in the meantime, climbs all over the back end of Scott Pruitt's car. It's a battle for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Bobby Rahal comes up to make a move as well.
Last year, Little Al was able to surprise Michael and sneak by him into the lead. He was never headed after that. Now, obviously, Michael has seen him this time. There's going to be no surprise move that's going to work.
Yeah, you can watch Michael pull over and try to block Little Al going into that turn at the other long straightaway, but the main thing is you look how aggressive Little Al is this early on. And remember, everybody's full of fuel. 40 gallons of fuel standing right behind the drivers.
Here's where the trouble was before, but everybody at the front gets through smoothly as they come to the conclusion now of lap number 9. 9 laps, the scheduled distance 105 laps here at Long Beach. That's 10 laps up from in past years. Danny Sullivan begins to challenge Scott Pruitt again. No challenge at the front of the field, though Al Unser Jr. is in pursuit of Michael as they go under braking. And Al Unser Jr. comes to the inside as Michael locks him up for just a second.
That just shows you how hard Michael is trying, Paul.
And look at Sullivan and Pruitt as Sullivan ducks under Pruitt.
Well, they almost got together there, but it shows you how hard and how important passing is early in the race, because the guys are really trying hard.
It is very important to get your position just as early on as you can.
It makes you wonder, too, if Pruitt was a little conservative coming into that turn because of his brake failure earlier.
I don't think that I'd stomp down on him too hard, and I'd sure test him plenty early.
Interestingly, he brakes with his left foot.
So Scott Pruitt now in the position of chasing Danny Sullivan as the rest of the field comes through. There's Emerson Fittipaldi with Bobby Rahal, last week's winner at Phoenix, right behind him. And in single file as they come through the tightest turn on the course. That's the hairpin, and back on the pit straight, which is Shoreline Drive.
That's probably no more than a 30 miles an hour turn right at the bottom of it, Paul. It's really a hairpin.
Got a glimpse there in the pits, the 30 car, Fabrizio Barbaza. They've had some trouble with that machine.
The black and yellow car that you're about to see go by the screen right there is Bobby Rahal. He had a bad time in qualifying with some problems with the car, but his crew chief, Jim McGee, told me that on the lap that his engine blew, he'd run a lap fast enough to be on the front row of the grid. I expect to see him move up. There he is right there, Bobby Rahal, who won last week in Phoenix.
Of course, at the beginning of any new season, there's plenty of experimentation going on. That's certainly true in the leader, Michael Andretti's car, brand new Ford engine there. In the second place car, that's a new chassis, the Galmer for Al Unser Jr. Danny Sullivan is a Galmer as well, and that's a brand new chassis for Scott Pruitt as well. So Bobby Rahal is really, well, I should mention Emerson Fittipaldi, who sits right behind Pruitt, and he is a brand new Chevrolet engine too. Bobby Rahal is the only one that is really running a tried and true combination. Bobby Unser.
Well, that's something that's worked good last week at Phoenix. We thought, for example, that the new Fords were going to be stronger than any of them, and it all equaled out, and Rahal, in good handling, outdid everything else.
In the entire history of this race, prior to the start today, 784 laps have been run by the Indy cars. 700 of those have been led by either an Andretti or an Unser. Only 84 laps have been led by anybody else.
And an Andretti and an Unser is in first and second place right now. They are selling T-shirts here, which talk about the picture Michael and Al in boxing gloves, ready to duke it out for 105 laps. And I think that those T-shirts are a real vision of what's going on here.
You can watch as they came off that hairpin corner. You wonder why Michael gets that much of a jump like a little Al, and they were so close coming out of the turn. And that's because whichever turbocharger lights the first, they jump out about 10, 15 yards on the other car.
You get a great view from high above the circuit here through the first and second turn, now making the right-hand turn for turn number 3 as they continue to work on one another. Now here's that new section. Normally right here they would make a right. Instead they continue straight on underneath the promenade, underneath the garage area, and right down all the way down Seaside before they make this right-hand turn.
That's in turn 6, Paul, and that straightaway is so fast because it's wide open from clear back in turn 4. That's a lot of speed, maybe even faster than the front straightaway, which we're coming on to right now.
The changes in the course are because they're going to expand the convention center.
So there's the way they line up with now 12 laps complete in the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. A tremendous run already, and as suggested, it's Unser and Andretti battling once again. You can see Danny Sullivan is now closing down on the back end of Al Unser Jr. And little Al runs well behind Michael Andretti.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, the London Sun, an English paper with an enormous circulation, you see Danny Sullivan there at the top of the screen, featured Danny as one of the guys that could make Fergie happy. And other choices were John Kennedy Jr., George Hamilton, Bob Carey. You know, I believe Danny might go.
Roberto Guerrero comes into the pits. This is lap 37, so we should see the start of all the scheduled pit stops here shortly, though this one would seem to be a little bit early given the long yellow period that we saw early on. Nevertheless, the stop looks to be fairly routine.
Well, it does. It looks to be totally routine, but here's some more coming in. Here's Rick Mears, and there's going to be a whole bunch of them coming in. They're going to make their early pits off, their first pits.
Let's go to Gary Terrell.
And we get our first look at the Andretti team in action. This is Michael's Newman Haas team. He, of course, won his first ever IndyCar race here 6 years ago, 1986, on the streets of Long Beach. He's been dominant in the early going. Everything appears to be smooth as they have him off the jacks, and he's underway already. Nice stop.
The Michael Andretti screams back in the action. Jack Arute.
Well, the action is taking place down here in the Al Unser Jr. pit, and they were fading back, Paul, because they had a problem with the right rear tire. They made a change in tire pressures, and he is off and away, but that accounted for his fading there in the last couple of laps.
Remember last year when Emerson Fittipaldi and Michael got together? These pits are still very, very tight. And that was Danny Sullivan that with the pit stop was able to get out ahead of Al Unser Jr. So Sullivan moves up to second place as a result of the pit crew.
Just to reiterate, these are teammates, and it'll be interesting to see whether Al Unser Jr., who had been running stronger than Sullivan earlier, will be let by Sullivan. Sullivan is having a good run. Oh.
Serious problem. 2 cars, one Marcello, the other Eric Bachelard, both in a runoff area. There is some debris there, so one would have to assume contact, but we'll wait for an official report.
That looks like a lot of paper laying on the ground, Paul. They probably had some contact because it's too strange for both of them to be there at the same time.
Well, Marcello's car is totally empty.
It don't look, well, I think that's there from before, and I think, I think Bachelor got there just now.
So now emergency vehicles out on the course, the double yellow flags at the start-finish line. They should send the pace car out very shortly, and that will come at a most opportune time for the leaders to have completed their stops. Look at this, Scott Goodyear.
Warming up
coming loose. He's picked something up there on the back wing. Bobby, you have any idea what that might be?
Looks like a piece of paper hanging up on there because it's too far forward to be a piece of aluminum or carbon fiber, Paul.
Shouldn't affect anything. Of course, you consider the Rick Mears situation as the pace car comes off. They're going to leave him right there. Problem possibly passing under the yellow in the first race. Pace car placement questionable at Phoenix last week. Here it is again as they come back to the green flag. And Rick Mears will have a full mile and a half to try to make up because those are the leaders right behind him. Michael Andretti followed by Danny Sullivan and Al Unser Jr. This is the stop-and-go penalty because Scott Goodyear ran over his tire during that yellow flag on the exit of the pits.
Well, and that's a bad thing to have happen at a track like the Long Beach with all these turns and a straight course. It's rough for these stop-and-go penalties.
And, of course, what they do is they hold the stop-and-go penalty until they go green again, so it has a proper competitive effect. Let's go to Gary Gerould.
And, Paul, there was more than that stop and go. They adjusted the front wings, but there was damage on the side panel of the rear wing on the right side. They had to rip it away. He's now back on course. Whether that'll affect the downforce of the handling, he's about to find out.
Gary, we saw that flapping in the breeze, so that was part of the side panel.
That was part of the side panel, and they ripped it off. They've got it down here underneath the toolbox now on the near side of the pit wall.
There you see it as they made the stop and go. Indeed, they had to rip a whole section of the side panel off the car.
Well, that was a piece of carbon fiber, and it really isn't going to bother the handling at all.
Danny Sullivan charges alongside of Michael Andretti. It's a fight for the lead. Al Unser Jr. is right there. You could throw a blanket over the front 3 cars.
And just so everybody knows, when these guys come in for their pit stop, they always get minor adjustments made.
Oh, look at Danny. As Danny darts down inside of Michael, had some problem. And now Al Unser Jr. comes around. Michael is suddenly back rolling at speed. What could it be, a missed gear?
He definitely has some problems, and he probably has a little bit of engine getting started problem.
And the fight continues for the lead as Al Unser Jr. now comes inside of Danny Sullivan. And Al Unser Jr. will be the leader of the race. So just in the space of 1 lap, the lead has changed twice.
Looks like a vulture finding fresh meat as soon as something happened to Michael right there.
Whatever happened to Michael might still be affecting him as he appears to fall back just a little bit. As they come onto the pit straight again, there comes Danny Sullivan through. Al Unser Jr. is back in front. 4 straight wins. Can he do it again this year? Well, he's in the key position.
Michael's either lost a gear in the transmission, which is quite possible, Paul, or he's having fuel injection problems. Most likely he's lost a gear in his transmission.
Well, Emerson Fittipaldi has also moved around Michael. Now Scott Pruitt is right there trying. As they come off the second turn and head for turn 3, Michael slows completely, and the rest of the field cycles past.
He's trying to get out of the way. He's really being a good sport about this because he realizes he's a lame duck, and he doesn't want to mess all the other guys up. He just about had a wreck up in the front just a little bit ago.
That'll be a lot of radio communication with this pit as Carl Haas and his crew are watching what's happening, Gary Gerould.
Indeed they are, and it is gearbox problem. So another Andretti. First it was John with the gearbox. Now it's Michael, and the tough luck that plagued him in the season opener Australia, then at Phoenix, has caught him again at Long Beach.
He rolled back into the pit area. Problem in the gearbox, taking him out of the race. Don't forget, though, last year, after 3 races, Michael Andretti trailed in the PPG standings by 34 points and still came back to his great championship. Let's go down to the pits and Gary.
Yep, he stayed in the cockpit as they rolled it all the way back into the paddock area. We've seen 3 cars come out of this race with gearbox problems. Michael, what is it about these street circuits that make it so tough on the gearbox?
Well, you're always in the low gear, putting a lot of torque through, the whole drivetrain, and when you do that, you put a lot of strain, and things break. But, you know, the biggest problem was we didn't have enough miles of testing on this. It may have broke testing if we would have had more miles with this new car, but we didn't.
3 consecutive races with bitter disappointment now, but then I remember last year, that's the way that season started, and you won a championship.
Yeah, but at least we had a 4th place going into Indy. We don't have anything going into Indy, so this one hurt big time.
Well, the month of May, we hope will be more promising. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, it's a simple solution. He just comes back with an Indy win, and everything will be fine. Tony Bentonhausen reaches down into the cockpit of his car. He was running 16th prior to pulling the car off the edge of the circuit. Then it appears that Tony's day is done as well.
That's kind of rare to have this many cars falling out, Paul, but transmissions have always been a problem here at Long Beach.
Talk about those tight gears. They run this whole part of the track in 2nd gear, then accelerate on the back straight. They're starting onto that after one more turn here. He's in 2nd, now he's going into 3rd, then 4th, then 5th, then 6th down the back. And then on the other end, which he's approaching at about 175 miles an hour, he will go down actually into 1st gear, which is really tough on a transmission.
In the cars out of the race thus far, of course, Mario Andretti and Eddie Cheever on the very first lap with contact. Fabrizio Barbaza had his brakes go. Jody Marcello, John Andretti, Michael Andretti, and Scott Brayton all out with gearbox problems. And Gregor Wojtek had a hole in his headers and so had to retire. And we don't yet have an official reason for Tony Bentonhausen's retirement.
For all that, we've had better racing, closer racing, and more action than we've had for several years here at Long Beach.
Change in the circuit certainly have kept the cars together as we watch Danny Sullivan now with Emerson Fittipaldi just behind him. And this, of course, is a battle for 2nd place. Allenzer Jr. is just ahead with the lead.
You know, we have in the first 2 places, kind of interesting, Galmer chassis, the first year with these brand new cars designed and built by the Rick Gallis people. And Paul, that's something kind of new and different to have those cars going fast and leading the races this early in the season.
Saturday on ABC Sports, the pressure is on as we've got a car off, and then Scott Goodyear, quick little spin, kicked the clutch in, kept the engine going, and stays in the fight. Scott Goodyear was running in 6th, and it looked like he may have been able to hold on to that position.
It's the brakes. You know, that's at the end of the long front straightaway, and brakes get awfully hot here at Long Beach. There's Scott. He went in too much rear brake on the car. He just locked up and spun around.
He did a nice job, don't you think, Bobby?
Yes, he did, Sam, and very similar to maybe what happened to Scott Pruitt. Of course, Scott didn't have any front brakes as we saw.
Here he puts the clutch in because these cars don't have starters, and if you stall them, you're done for.
Well, it takes a smart driver not to kill the engine.
Stay tuned for World League action from New York at 8:30.
NBA game sees the LA Lakers traveling to Portland to battle with the Trailblazers. Friday night at 9:30 here on Screen Sport.
A company can learn a lot in 125 years. Valvoline has. You learn in the lab, you learn on the road, you learn on the racetrack. As you learn, you make your product better. And better, and better. Today's Valvoline will keep your engine cleaner than ever before. And cleaner means more protection against engine wear. 125 years of quality. That's why people who know use Valvoline.
Tennis der Spitzenklasse. 7 Tage lang berichtet Pro7 ab 13:30 Uhr live und exklusiv von den BMW Open. Mit Weltklasse-Spielern wie Wimbledon-Sieger Michael Stich, Goran Ivanisevic, dem Aufsteiger des Jahres 91, dem tschechischen Tennisass Petr Korda oder Davis-Cup-Spieler Karl-Uwe Steeb und Thomas Muster, dem BMW Open erfahrenen Österreicher. Und Guido Bolden führt Sie wieder Wimbledon erfahren durchs Programm. Seien Sie dabei vom 27. April bis 3. Mai beim ersten Outdoor-Turnier Deutschlands, exklusiv auf Pro7.
The world's fastest and most exotic Mercedes-Benz drives on Goodyear Eagle radials, and only on Goodyear Eagle radials. Why? Because the Mercedes engineers want it that way, and Goodyear makes it that way.
And here comes Bobby Rahal as he moves inside Scott Pruitt and picks up 4th place. So Bobby Rahal now beginning to move up through the field, and Scott Pruitt, well, that backup car is looking very strong.
You know, I started to mention on the transmissions, if one of those teeth gets caught in between the gears, sometimes it splits the entire case of the transmission apart. There's thousands of dollars, maybe $25,000 worth of damage, folks.
Rahal, incidentally, cooled his tires for a lap or two when he was behind Scott Pruitt, and you notice that once he made his move ahead of, he's really put the hammer down. He's going to try to pull away 2 or 3 tenths of a second and then convince Scott Pruitt that he can't counterattack.
56 laps are complete, the 105 lap scheduled distance, and now Danny Sullivan closing in at the end of Shoreline on the leader, Al Unser Jr. He darts out to take a look. Fittipaldi closes in from 3rd place.